Welcome to the Smoking Word.
What's up, everybody? This podcast and every podcast is brought to you by CasaDeRock.com. If you want to support the show, go cop some merch. Everything is done in-house by your boy. We got something for the whole family. We're about to drop some new hoodies, so look out for that. You can also catch us on Apple Music, Spotify, and we just dropped our YouTube channel where we have a lot of stuff lined up for it. This show cannot continue without you supporting it. And the way you do that is you have to subscribe. You have to hit that, smash that like button, leave a comment, and spread the word. We got to keep this wave popping. This week, my guest, my good friend, and my first returning guest to the Smokin' Word podcast, the voice behind Terror, Buried Alive, World Be Free, my boy, the Birdman, Scott Vogel. Let's set this off. What's up, everybody? The Smokin' Word is back with another episode. I had an idea. Lately, I've been reminiscing. I've been listening to a lot of old records and albums and fucking videos, and had an idea to do an A through Z of every hardcore band we could think of. And I figured, who better else than to get Mr. Hardcore himself, my boy, the Birdman, Scott Vogel. Yeah, there he goes, the Birdman.
What's the word?
What's up? What's the word, Birdman? What's going on? Where you at?
My kitchen, home sweet home.
You're in California right now, then, huh? Or you're in Buffalo?
Burbank, baby. Burbank.
You're the Burbank Birdman.
Right where you stayed when you recorded Hazen Street and didn't call me once.
Yeah, listen, no, because you were too busy coming to the studio, ignoring us because you were trying to get a record deal or something. Remember that? I don't forget nothing. Remember, weed affects the short term, not the long term.
I was picking Freddie up, the real member of Madball.
The heart and soul of fucking Madball. But what's going on? How you been?
You know, maintaining. I can't complain too much. It's a little crazy out there, but whatever.
Yeah, I know you've been doing a lot with the Terror, the whole Terror. What is it? The .com you have? Well, all the stuff you've been doing. You did a couple you were dropping new music and demos and old release tracks and whatnots. What you were doing with that? Let people know what's crack-a-lacking with Terror.
Sorry, my glasses are fucked up.
That's all right.
Yeah, we've been busy, real busy. When this shit hit, we knew, I didn't think we knew how long it was going to be till we did anything, which still has no plan in sight. But I think I just kind of had the idea that we have, we had been a band for almost 20 years and demoed so much shit and had
the 20-year band mark. You're no longer the new band. I keep saying, when they ask new bands, I'm like, Terror. And I go, yo, they're not new no more. But
it's actually been like 18 or 19, but 20
years.
We just had so much, songs that didn't make the record, songs that when you're recording, you can only do vocals to so many songs that just kind of sat there. So luckily we have the wizard Nick Jett with studios and laptops and
the
microphones.
Best.
And so we were able to really do a lot of shit. And then Jared from Trapped Under Ice and Down to Nothing,
shout out Jared.
Yeah, he had the idea of kind of doing this album talk through. So we started at the beginning of each. We started our first record and kind of got people and talked through all of them. Like the one Busky played on, he was on. We had Todd Jones, our old guitarist, come and do the first two because he wrote the first two records. And we just sat in my garage, Nick the Wizard set up microphones, and we made like this DIY pot. We called it a garage cast, and just talked about the records. And Martine, he's kind of smart too, and he set up the website. And yeah, we did that. And then Andrew from Strife, he has a label, and he put all the song. We put out 4 unreleased songs that people have never heard before. He put them out on these weird lathe cut 7 inches. They're these weird thick records. So just, I mean, I think it's the spirit of hardcore, and being a hardcore kid, you just grind, and
yeah,
you can't stop. I mean, you can't stop us. I did just get my ASCAP check, which is always a good day. You come home and your ASCAP check's in the mailbox, but it was for performance. Your performances of January through March 2020. It wasn't so great. There wasn't many performances. So
I don't even know what an ASCAP is. I don't see nothing but fucking my bills.
Oh man, let me find someone to be your personal manager. You can make a little money with ASCAP.
Yeah, I know. Let me tell you, we don't see shit.
Well, this one wasn't all.
No, but that's
all that.
But that's what I like, and that's the same shit how we do. Is having that hardcore mentality where, the times don't judge what we could do. There's always something we could do. If like back in the day, the real clubs didn't want to book a band, you found the garage, you found the space. A merch company didn't want to fuck with you, you made the shirts yourself. I was just talking lately. I don't sit around thinking about hardcore, but I like to think I'm also the ultimate hardcore kid on the low, because it's how we were bred. You know what I mean? There's no other way. Everything we do is constantly thinking. The minute you try to say we can't do something, we find a way to do it. And that's one of the reasons I restarted the podcast. The same shit I said. This shit ain't going to stop us from pushing our brand and letting people know we're still a band, and with this shit, we run it ourselves, how we want to run it, and we've been thinking of ideas too. Once the band gets together, we're going to be dropping some jam studio shit out there on the Instagrams, and also, putting stuff on the website, similar to what you're doing, like keeping the shit alive. And it's funny because more than ever, this pandemic brought that shit back out, like, survival mode. If you're a hardcore band, you always will be on survival mode.
Yeah,
you know how that is. We don't get the respect that we deserve. And I'm not just saying Madball and Terry, the whole scene is getting more respect than it ever has, but still, they look at us as some little kid shit, yet we're grown men. You know what I mean? And every grown man in every other scene is influenced by our world. And I think, shit like this, we show people that we make shit happen on our own. You know what I mean? And that shit inspired me to do a lot of shit, like, again, the podcast, and go back to the roots of shit. And lately, I've been, with the YouTube, I've been throwing a lot of old school, videos, even, newer bands, just going through a rabbit hole of the videos, and I'd be forgetting about videos that came out and songs and reminiscing about bands. And I was like, and I take pride in, I didn't go to every show. I'm not some old school guy. My first show was in '88, which some people consider old, but I don't consider that old school. But, to me, the old school guys are the Vinnies, the Jimmy Gestapos, and all that shit. But I was lucky to come up in an era where all the classics, I was spoiled to be in New York when all the New York bands were popping. But I love the whole movement as a whole. And I learned to appreciate the bands outside of New York as I got older more. Because, when I was a kid, I was all about just New York and being all gung-ho about that. And then later on, you start finding that a lot of the bands we grew up with were influenced by the other bands from other states and even other countries. But I was getting the idea of, I would go through and I was thinking, I know this band, that band. I was like, I wanted to do an A through Z of whatever bands that popped in our heads, that made an impact in our head, that we either like, we don't like, that we got to see or not see. old, new. And then I said, who better than to talk to Mr. Hardcore himself, the Birdman? And that's when I got in touch with you, and I figured, I came up with a couple of bands that popped in my head. Some I wrote down, some I didn't. I forgot a lot, and I figured we just go through a bunch of bands and, what you remember about them, if you like them, you did it, not just you, and, we're both gonna, because I know a lot of groups that I forgot about and vice versa, and, we'll see what we have. And I figured let's see how far we could get on this hardcore A through Z's.
Any hardcore band, any era.
Any hardcore band, any era. You seen, didn't seen. If we name a band you don't like or like, this is all about just, this is the shit that we would do backstage. It's the same kind of shit, but I figured let's let the people in on it. You know what I mean?
This is the shit I try to get people in Terror to do on like a 20-hour van drive, and we get to be, and they're like, I'm going back to my phone. Leave me alone.
Exactly. Now I say, no, now we're going to, let people be a fly on the wall. But it came at a good time because literally the last couple of weeks more than ever, I've been going through a lot of old shit, but it relit, later bands, also just the different eras or whatever. So I was like, yo, let's see what we could come up with and what we remember and what we didn't remember.
And we'll see when we forget some of our favorite bands.
Exactly.
We're on cue, and then we forget one of our favorite Bs, and we're like, damn.
Exactly. But that's exactly, we go as we go, and then if we ever need to do a part 2, we do a part 2. But
all right, I think it would only be fair if we're going to start.
Yes.
I think we both know what the number 1 A is going to be, and you're a little bit closer to them than me, so
yeah.
You can start if you want.
No, but also, obviously, for me, Agnostic Front. For me, Agnostic Front, and also, we'll talk about the albums too, but not just because they're family. I think they were like the first hardcore band I literally heard. My brother was into hardcore, and I always heard all types of shit. But they were the first ones I connected the dots with, and it just happened to be the Godfathers. And in all respect to a lot of these old school bands, they are classic this, classic that. Those are the guys that haven't stopped and are touring right now. Well, when you could tour, haven't missed a beat. And not only that, they spawned a lot of people, not just us, but like the people that grew up with that. Like I said, the mentality we have, the mentality of do it yourself, to represent, to be conscious, everybody's included, don't shit on the new kids kind of thing, but show respect to the old school guys. Victim in Pain. I mean, AF, well, do you remember, did you ever get to see, do you remember the first time you got to see AF? Let me start with that.
Yeah, but even before that, if people ask me, like, the first record I ever got into, I bought the Minor Threat album because of Another State of Mind, the Social Distortion movie. I would say that was my first move into hardcore. Right after that, the next move, a kid from my neighborhood, he went to a Catholic school, so he didn't go to my high school. He gave me a cassette, Don't Forget the Struggle, Warzone, and Victim in Pain on the other side, and that was it. That was my first taste of New York hardcore, and it like completely floored me. And then the first time I saw AF, I believe, was what they called in Buffalo the Super Bowl of hardcore, and it was AF, Sick of It All, Biohazard, Zero Tolerance, and No Joke, 2 local bands, and then those 3. And I mean, that was at a place called the Sky Room, and that had to be, and that's when Buffalo was doing so much metal and hardcore together. Like Zero Tolerance would play with metal bands all the time, Snapcase would, and like me and my brother would go see. They would do these things called the Gathering of the Tribes, I think it would be like a hardcore band and like even death metal.
That's dope.
Yeah, and I'm saying this because like this club was a typical like metal club, and then you get Biohazard, and I'm sure like AF was crossover, Sick of It All a little bit. They did that Clash of the Titans tour, so I'm guessing there was over 1,000 people there, and for Buffalo, that's fucking insane. And after that, I think that was the first time. It was either that or I saw him on the Obituary, the One Voice tour with Obituary, and was it Malevolent Creation also?
Yeah, it was Obituary, Malevolent Creation, and fuck, who else was on that? And damn, I can't believe I forgot who else.
Man, that was
a classic. That was a big tour, like, you know. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, that's the shit. Like, for me, you know, again, I have a big brother. So right away, it was Victim in Pain. And I always loved metal. You know, I loved metal. I loved, you know, Black Sabbath was blasting out of the room. Slayer was blasting out of the room. And hardcore. And, you know, Venom was blasting out of the room. And, you know, AF was blasting. But I remember hearing Victim in Pain and thinking, what the fuck is this? But something about it was so grimy in the best way. And it's funny because that's a real ill record. Now going back to it, you could hear it. You know, the guitars are a little out of tune. The band is a little off, but it makes the perfect fucking record. You know, like from every song sounding different, every song sounded like an anthem. And I didn't even know, but I was glad that that was like my first taste to kind of get the early wave in my blood, even though I tend to like the more crossover shit later on. But man, AF, every record also, now let me ask you this. Did you like every, I mean, you know, of course you respect and whatever, but there was albums I liked more than others. But I always gave Agnostic Front that every album they changed. Out of the early first 2-3 albums, did you feel the same way about those albums? Victim in Pain, Cause for Alarm, Liberty and Justice. Because those were three totally different albums.
Victim in Pain was a life changer. I had Liberty and Justice on vinyl and I listened to it all the time. I think I didn't. Of course, now I did 100% and I love it. But Cause for Alarm, I think it slipped through the crack. I think I never got it. So, yeah. And then the live at CBGB's that's like maybe the greatest live record ever. That game changer. And just the, you know, like you look at the back and you got Roger has a Slapshot shirt on. That's a whole story. Like you're in your head, you're like, what's going on here? And the live pictures, everyone has, you know, Roger's got hair, but the rest of them all shaved heads and they look mean as shit. Yep. And you're just like, and then maybe the coolest thing in the world that AF ever did that affected me was seeing that Anthem video on Headbangers Ball. Like, holy shit. Yeah. Just like, everyone with a shaved head. Everyone looks like they eat people for dinner. I had never been to CBGB's at the time. It made it look like a stadium. It looked like you could fit 1,000 people in it, and it was just the perfect hardcore show. And it's just like that's like being in Buffalo. I was probably, I don't know, at that time 15, and just seeing that, it was like, this is the absolute coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, for me it was funny because it was almost the reverse. I wasn't crazy about Cause for Alarm, but I love that they brought the metal in. Like, I was like, man, he could play better now. But I admit some of it still wasn't Slayer for me. But I remember I'm like, yo, I could hear the influence. Liberty Justice, I didn't get into Liberty Justice till later. But the Anthem video, that shit changed the game. I was like, number one, Willie was 16 years old on that shit. You know, imagine that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I get amped now when I see bands that are 16, 17, 18, because in our day, not to sound like some old guy, but there was more of those. Now it seems like, you know, the kids are 20 and older nowadays. You know, like, you know, I don't know, they seem much older than kids starting bands. So to think about some kid, 16, 17 years old, playing with AF, and then they got a video, and there was nothing metal about that video. That was just straight New York hardcore, and the video is a fucking classic. You know what I mean? I'm like, forget it. I would never tell this to Roger to gas him up, but you know, those shits, forget it. They like, those shits are imprinted in my head. Those moments, like you said, the iconic photos, the live at CB's. I know every banter in between.
Yeah, me too.
That's like it's like a movie dialogue and shit. But of course, Agnostic Front. Now,
and I would say too, before we get off them, so we don't stay on AF forever. One Voice is such a cool record, different for them, and I think it's sort of obvious, but maybe not 100%. But I would just say that was like the birth of Madball. That sound, and obviously there's where Matt Henderson came in, and you can feel the bounce, not full on Madball bounce, but a new little like groove and flavor, and then off that shot Madball, who's obviously one of my favorite hardcore bands ever. So
that's exactly. In the last podcast, by the time this podcast come out, we just did the Set It Off reunion with Maddie, Willie, and Freddie, and we talked about the making that Set It Off baby, and that was the thing. When they asked me to write music for Madball, I wrote 2 songs, the first 2 songs for Madball, and it was Set It Off and It's Time. And I didn't bring Set It Off to the table because I said, man, this shit is too swaggy for these guys. These guys wear boots, I'm wearing Nikes. They won't understand it. And, these guys were like, I grew up, I looked up to these guys. So I said, let me give them a song that I could kind of spoon feed my style to them. I said, I like the shit off One Voice because it had that swag, but it wasn't swaggy yet. It was the most swag for them. And I basically mimicked with the song It's Time off a One Voice song. So there's a lot of similarities, and that's what I did. I kind of gave them that song first. I was like, I got this track because it was kind of the next step into taking the bounce to another level. I heard the riff, but I was like, man, I could hear a bop, but I want you to feel the bop more than, say, oh, I could kind of hear it, and then we built on it. But yeah, One Voice, again, man, it's crazy for a band that could have such an impact through so many eras. Salute to the G's, Agnostic Front. I got another band for you that I want to know what you think about. Absolution. You familiar with them any?
I will not lie. I mean, I know it's Gavin. I think we actually played with them the last time we did the B&B Bowl. They played.
Did Absolution?
I think so. Almost positive. Am I wrong?
I don't even remember.
It was the year Rest in Pieces played. Maybe not. What?
You know what? You might be right.
I think so.
No, I think you might be fucking right, and I can't believe that I forgot. But yeah, you might be right. But you didn't get to catch any of that till later, right?
I'm a poser. I don't know. I don't even really still don't know.
Then they were one of those bands that it was in that era. They were one of the main players in that era. Like, you know what I mean? They were like that perfect band to, it would be the Maximum Penalty, Absolution, and AF, or Absolution headlining under them, this band and that. They were like in the mix with things. But exactly. They were definitely a band that you had to kind of be around to, because again, I'm not sure how much touring they did, but they were interesting band. Because,
I'm gonna say they never came to Buffalo.
Yeah.
They weren't on like either the New York hardcore where the wild things are, or the way it is, and that they just flew under my radar. But I love Gavin's playing on the Burn 7 inches.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. So I bet I would love it.
Well, yeah, they were cool. Like, what I liked about them, Burn took off. There'd be no Burn without Absolution. That's just what it is. It was like crazy guitar work. You know what I mean? Like that Gavin style is like, Gavin don't play like anybody. He has his own style. That it's not metal, but it's heavy, it's hard. It's got the weird chords. And Gingy fucking was one of the wildest frontmen you ever seen. Long, skinny guy doing capoeira on stage. It was crazy. I used to love their shows to watch him go crazy almost more than anything. But they had a lot of cool shit. And then at the era, they were around during that whole breakdown era, who we're gonna get into and all that other shit. But yeah, cool band, Absolution. I got another band under A that I know you know of. All Out War. This is a little bit later.
Oh, good one.
What you got for All Out War?
So the first time I met Mike Score, it's like you. So both of you are really good people. Dissed me right to my face.
Whatever.
The first time I met Mike Score, I drove up to Chicago with this Buffalo band called Envy. They were playing some fest in Chicago, and I had just got All Out War's like what's their first record called?
I'm bad
I don't know.
Titles.
Yeah, it's on that European Gain Ground Records. I got their first record and I was blown away by it. It was so heavy, and they've got a sound of their own. They're fucking crazy. And this is when I was getting into my Madball, Stigmata, All Out War, Dying Breed, all the Cold as Life. That phase was just taking over my brain. And I just went with these guys to see, I really wanted to see All Out War. And I want to say during their set or before they even got to play, some huge fight broke out and the show got shut down. So I tried to get to Mike's Score to be like, oh, I got this. I don't know what I was going to say to him, jock him a little bit. And he was like, yeah, man, the cops are coming. Get away from me or something. And so that was my first meeting with him. But my band, Buried Alive, we clicked with them and played with them all over. Them and Reach the Sky and Death Threat were that was our group of, but we'd play anywhere. Sometimes it would be to 30 people. Sometimes it'd be to 300 people. We toured. The second time I did a full U.S. tour was with Buried Alive and All Out War, and they're some of the best people and just very genuine people. There's no gimmick, no image.
Yeah, no,
typical weirdo fuck-ups.
A lot of good guys, and they brought that metal shit, another resurgence of that metal shit, real heavy and hard. And it was at a time when people were doing the more swaggy hardcore, where a Madball fell in. It was a little bit more, they were less urban or whatever you want to call it with that thing, but it was like they were like a cause for alarm for our era. You know what I mean? Like they brought that metal and even the metal was even stepped up with, the style wise, the sound, and even everything about it, even the name was hard, All Out War. And you just named a bunch of other bands with different letters that I completely forgot about.
I probably wouldn't have brought up All Out War, and that's one of the best. So it's gonna be
because they're like, again, I don't consider us an old school band as much as people do, but they were a band that were around when we were fighting those early couple of rounds. The first, out of a 12-round fight, they were the ones who were doing the first 5 rounds. They were one of the bands that was always involved with everything. In upstate New York, upstate has that whole white trash fucking factor, so that helps. Shout out to All Out War. But all right, we got A. All right, let's move on to B. All right, who would you name in the letter B to start? You don't even have to start it off in where you think the band falls in, but who you got for B, and I'll tell you who I got.
I'll go Breakdown right off the bat. Breakdown and Bold would be my 2 Bs.
It's funny you say that because, I'll start with mine, then we're going to go into those 2. All right? And then we'll start just because. So, the Bad Brains. I got them. For everybody who knows me very well, they know, and I'm not afraid to say it because I know a lot of people are shook to say it. I was never the biggest Bad Brain fan. For me, I like 3-4 songs. I don't think that makes me a fan. But I respect what they did, and they respect, they deserve all the props they get. They made, you hear all the old school guys put them up there, they were the band that did this and that, and, salute to them for all that. They definitely brought a different style to the game. They definitely were ill players. I was never crazy about them, I wouldn't even call myself a fan, but they definitely are, on one of the heads, one of the faces on the Mount Rushmore of hardcore music. They deserve their spot. But I personally didn't like them until Quickness, because again, it was a little bit more up to speed sonically for what I liked. And but people go crazy when I tell them I don't like the Bad Brains. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. Were you ever into them? I know kind of the answer, but
I could mimic what you said, very, very close to what you said. A lot of the early stuff was a little too punky and I don't know, punky, I guess, for me. Eye Against Eye is where I got I remember my brother had the cassette, with the
yellow tape.
Yes, and he loved it. And my brother definitely was the person that put me on to everything. But when he was into the Dead Kennedys and the Sex Pistols, I was kind of like lukewarm on all of it. I was like, I like that it's crazy. I like that it's crazy, and I like that it's not it's going against the grain, but it never really hooked me in. Something about Mommy's Little Monster from Social Distortion hooked me in. That was like the punk, that and Group Sex were like the punk records that I got into from my brother. But kind of the same thing. I don't want to get off track too much, but kind of the same thing. Complete Respect. Quickness would be my go-to. Eye Against Eye. There's some really cool riffs and really hard-hitting stuff, and really
they got good moments.
Yeah, good intros to songs, and you can definitely find if you listen to Crowmags, you see exactly where they got everything from.
Yeah.
So that's obviously important. But I'm with you. They're not like a go-to band for me.
Yeah.
So.
God forbid you say that to some people. They want to. How could you be into this hardcore? Blah, blah. I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
I say the same thing about Minor Threat too. Like, they definitely got me into hardcore, but it's I like a little bit harder hitting, a little meaner, a little bit, but I also go really weak. Like, I love Texas the Reason and stuff like that too. So who knows? Every man for his motherfucking self.
Fury of 5, we'll get into them too. But now, like one of the bands you named, and is one of the fingers on my fist of style that I always, were mad influenced by, was Breakdown. Now, Breakdown, I could pinpoint the song that gave New York hardcore. I'll just speak for New York, because hardcore is, I tend to say New York hardcore, but I always, us, we rep the whole hardcore scene, because everybody has something to do with it. You know what I mean? But what gave swag, that gave a sound that wasn't metal, that wasn't punk rock, that was 100% that hardcore shit that you and me love, Sick People. Sick People was the track that changed the game. It had a bounce that wasn't hip hop, but you could bop your head to it. It was heavy, but it wasn't a Slayer riff. It was a hardcore thing, but it wasn't fucking Dead Kennedys or punk rock. When I heard that shit and live, I get goose pimples right now, thinking about it. I was like, I got to do that. That's what I got to do. And Jeff, skinny, fucking had a fucking one of the first times I saw him, had an orange afro, but one of the hardest voices. I was like, this got to be this is the perfect hardcore band that basically I tried. That was one of the bands I was like, all right, yo, if I do a band, it got to have that Breakdown shit in it. And I was lucky too, man. I got to see them at some of the greatest, early Super Bowls. They came out one Super Bowl, they played like 3 songs, and they murdered everybody. You know what I mean? Jeff came out with an orange afro, big ass red lips, skinny white boy. Shout out to Jeff. Big influence. That track and that band ended up spawning my favorite band that we'll get into later.
Right. Right.
Breakdown. Did you ever catch them? What was your?
I never saw them early on. I started going to shows in '87 was the first show I went to, but at that time it was whoever came to Buffalo, and they
a lot of bands weren't touring out of state like crazy. That's the thing back then for sure.
You know, maybe by the early '90s, I could go to Syracuse or Rochester, or Erie, Pennsylvania, but I don't think they ever came there. But that track, the Sick People track on The Way It Is, the Rev Comp, that recording of it too, because there's the earlier recording, but that one, it's just got, I don't know the term, but it's like so bassy and so heavy, and the drums are huge, and his voice is so hard but so clear, and the lyrics are so like real and negative, and I had the 7-inch with the skateboard. I think the '87 demo on Blackout. Listen to that religiously, and fun fact: the very first Terror show, I think we had like 6 songs. We played our 6 songs and 2 breakdown covers, and that was it. So that was
there you go.
Like that was our statement of one of our for sure biggest influences. So. Those guys were literally that's when you say a New York hardcore band like what we loved, I think of that band, you know, like that's the starting point for, you know, that swag without being rapcore or whatever, because they had nothing to do with hip hop, but you could feel that bounce. It sounded like fucking furniture getting thrown off a roof. I don't know, man. Something about that fucking that demo was one of the best demos, you know. Put that on wax, that shit to go to, you know. All you motherfuckers out there, if you don't got that breakdown shit, you better go get it. That's for sure. When they pivoted too and lost all the members that went on to the band you're going to talk about later, I don't know when this band's going to come up, because they could come up in 2 different spots. Your favorite band, you know? Yeah. But when they pivoted and got the new lineup and like with Dijon and stuff, they were still fucking amazing, man. Some of their newer stuff is fucking great too.
Yeah, and I was glad, because I would go to all those Dijon era of breakdown because I loved the band, and they had that. Yeah, you're right. They were one of those bands that they always got the right people to jump in the band. To me, they never changed too much. And yet they built songs, you know what I mean? Street Fight, right? No, what was that? The one with Dijon later on. Some of the tracks with Dijon even were like, it was like you took that DNA and you injected Dijon with it. You know what I mean? Or Dijon came up very similar, you know, with that swag, that New York hardcore shit. You know what I mean?
You'll hear younger hardcore kids say that Dijon shit is their favorite, which to me is an absolute no, and no offense to Dijon. I love him. Yeah. I just brought it up. It's great, but I think because of our age bracket, we're gonna go back to
of course. That's the thing about, and I know I totally agree with and know what you mean, but it was that great that I don't even get offended, because to me it was like, it was in the same timeline. You know, it seemed like that's where they would have went, that style. But yeah, we tend to go back. We can't touch that demo. That breakdown demo is ridiculous. And I got another band that you just named. I don't know if you got any more beef, but I got Bold.
One of my favorites.
All right.
I hate to say this because I don't want to shine bad light on them, but a lot of people are like, Bold's terrible. That shit's terrible. And I'm like, nope, fucking amazing.
You know what it was for me was this. I won't lie either and be like, I was the biggest Bold fan. I seen Bold a lot of times. You know, I was again lucky to see a lot of, you know, what became the classic bands and the go-to bands, or whatever you want to call it, if they were straight edge or not. This was before anybody gave a fuck if you were straight edge or not. That's another thing I was glad to come up in that era. But Wise Up, the way to open up a fucking a compilation, and they had the break beat with you had that urban shit in it, and his voice was hard. Like, I don't know, a lot of their track listings and whatever, they had some great shows, but man, that song, fucking, the minute I hear it, it takes me right back to that time, man. You know, the sound, and they had a cool style, but you definitely know way more about them than I do. Where did they fall in on your radar when they came out, or when you discovered them?
I mean, that's when I was like 1,000% Revelation Records. Anything they put out, I was buying. And I remember specifically buying the cassette so I could play it in my car. Like, so many things I think about. Why didn't I buy the record? What did I do with the T-shirt?
Yeah.
You know, all these things. And you know, it's gonna sound kind of whack when I say it, but the truth is, their poster, their look, it's so appealing that it just draws you in. That almost the music
was second.
Not even that, but their look is almost as important to me as their music. And I've never been straight edge, you know.
Yeah.
I'll keep my hair short and wear a Champion hoodie every day of my life, but I've never been straight edge. But that Youth Crew aesthetic very spoke to me. Like it got me because I was such a jock.
That's what I was gonna say. That's why Buffalo, Syracuse, as much as they had known for a lot of straight edge bands, there was also a lot of people that weren't straight edge, but the look was very popular because those were college towns. So the whole athletic look was big. And the fact is, the straight edge kids brought in the jock look, which later on, kids were called tough guys jocks when it was like, no, the straight edge kids brought that whole thing in.
That's true. I mean, I was a jock. Zero Tolerance was Buffalo's biggest band, and they all dressed like jocks, and we're jocks, and we're straight edge. And when I really first got into hardcore, like, you know, I went to some shows, but by like 88, 89, Youth of Today and the Youth Crew and Gorilla Biscuits was huge. So
yeah,
just
exactly.
I was smoking a joint before the show, watching Gorilla Biscuits in my Champion hoodie, and I'll do that now still. So fuck it.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into those guys too, and definitely it's crazy. You know, a look has a lot to do with it. We talk about it. I talk about it with Rob, our boy Rob from fucking Born for Pain. That was a big part of him. He was straight edge as a kid, but a big part of it was he was also a jock. So he liked the really clean. You know, I loved a Letterman jacket, but I never wanted to be associated with the guys that separated themselves from what we had. We'll get into that also later on.
You're busy with your flight jacket.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and then that's the thing. You either, on the straight edge or that jock kind of look, whatever you want to put it, the athletics, or you are, the punk rock hardcore guy. I was a hardcore skin. You know, we used to wear flight jackets, DMs, or Doc Martens and a triple fat goose. Or we had a flight jacket and Nikes. You know, it was that New York hardcore shit still holding on with some of the essence of what made the scene.
Did you have anything?
Yeah, you know, I had that. Yeah, there was always something tucked in the jacket. You know what I mean? But that was more a Corona thing.
I think we could say also like a Biohazard, Billy Club sandwich.
Yo, I completely forgot all those. The Absolute Billy Club. There's a couple B's I forgot.
Bulldoze.
You know, you got to give Bulldoze. Obviously, Biohazard. You know.
Backtrack.
Yep, that definitely. Shout out to all of those. Those are all guys that represented the scene. You know, so even starting with real quick with Biohazard. You know, a lot of scene guys. A lot of the heartbeat with Billy and fucking Bobby, those were like real hardcore dudes. You know what I mean? Like those were legit. Biohazard, I never considered them a hardcore band, but they came out of the scene and they didn't hide their hardcore roots. If anything, they pushed it out front and showed what else they added to it. You know, if you liked them or not, you could tell it was part of the DNA. That's why, and again, when it came to the bounce game, they had that bounce shit, so I was in. You know what I mean? And I think, and what was great, what I was great about Biohazard, since they had that metal shit involved, it was a good way to spoon feed the metal guys into the hardcore shit. Where, look it, you got to take this bounce shit, and you could put it, they showed the metal guys how to put that bounce shit in it. Just put it like that. Chaos AD for Sepultura, one of my favorite Sepultura records, but there's no Chaos AD without Biohazard. Just a fact. That bounce, that extra heavy bounce, but with some metallic shit over it. You know, like them or not, wherever you thought they fell in the hardcore timeline, they definitely have a spot in the house. And also Bulldoze, they started that beatdown shit. You know what I mean? You had that slow style when everybody else was doing some other type of style. Backtrack. Those guys flew the flag with, again, keeping up to date with the hard shit, but they didn't sound like a band trying to do new school shit. They had a hip sound with the classic elements in it. That's what I always loved about them. You could tell, they're influenced by them, but they had their own thing going on. The whole Long Island had a spot always. They had their own world. So it's good when different, the whole Syracuse, Rochester, they took their elements from wherever they picked and then they added their elements. You could hear the influences. So all those B's, those are a couple B's I forgot about. That's why I got you here, Vogel.
I got one more.
Hit me.
Bane. I think they're pretty important.
All right. Now, you speak on Bane more than me. For me personally, I learned more, but I always knew because they've been around forever. And I didn't get to play with them. And they're good guys, good dudes. And we didn't get to play with them till the later years. Which was weird because we were around probably around the same time. And they might have even been around even longer than Madball, while Madball was, since Madball really playing consistently. And they had their own alternate universe of Baniacs. And later on, I got to tap in and fucking, see what they did. And I like what they do, but I wasn't into them back then. What's up with them on your scale?
I would say very, very, a very big part of that band is the singer, Aaron. He's got amazing lyrics, and he's one of those dudes that in between songs, when he says something, it really, whether you agree with it or not, it really drives a point home. And genuine dudes, love hardcore, toured like crazy, and I don't want to say like they're like the nicer guy, like the nicer hardcore kids, like favorite band, but they're kind of like that more pure. I don't want to say they're totally positive, but some hardcore kids are a little nicer than others. I think they're on that side of things, and they're just super heartfelt, sincere, really good band, really good people, really good live band.
Yeah.
And I think
a lot of energy with them. I got, I paid attention when we started playing with them because I would hear about them for so much, and it always bugged me out that we never crossed paths as much as we, considering we were around together at the same time. But yeah, a lot of good dudes, and they definitely, that's a band, again, not knowing a lot of their whole, of their music and their whole movement, but they definitely deserve the respect because I know they've been grinding, and everybody specifically, a lot of people talk about the lyrics. It's, that people really love the lyrics that guy does. They said, real strong shit. So, and I know they spawned some of our favorite people, like, for sure. A lot of bands came out of them, a lot of these Baniacs. When I first heard that name, I bugged out. I was like, that's so amazing.
Your boy Chris Link.
That's right. That's my little brother right there. Skeleto. But yeah, shout out to all you Baniacs out there and all the Bane crew. But all right, let's move on. C. Hit me with your C.
Got to go with Crowmags as the top
absolutely.
C.
Top C. They again, when you say goats in the game, they're some of the goats. You know what I mean? Like AF are the Godfathers, but those motherfuckers, the Crowmags, man, that album, that's a special album. I like the second album also, but that Age of Quarrel was something special about that shit. Like, to me, everything about them was, what I loved about them was they were the first band to me that, like I said, in my head, I always loved metal and I always loved hardcore. But that was the band that I loved and I rooted for so much because they were showing the metal bands and the hardcore kids you could come out with full stacks, sounding tight, 2 guitarists, being like a pro show and sounding big to show the metal guys that, this hardcore shit could do that too. And all of that with the lyrics that fucking, man, those lyrics were fucking ridiculous. You know, I can't remember the first time I seen them, but I just remember, like, you know, those dudes are game changers. Like, you know, they're definitely chiseled in there. Did you get to ever catch them early on, or you got to see them later on?
Fuck.
It was a weird thing because I also never seen them a lot of times. You know what I mean? It was like
they came
not till later on.
They came to Buffalo with John Joseph. They came to Buffalo and played a place called the Armory, the Connecticut Street Armory. I can see the flyer, but I feel like I wasn't there. But I saw him on the Best Wishes tour without John Joseph and without Mackie. But I might have seen him at that show, but I can't remember if I was there or not. Something tells me that if I said I was there, I'd be lying. But I feel like they're the whole thing. Just the cover art, lyrics, image of the band,
art,
early tattoos. You're right. They were like a hardcore band, but could give any metal band a run for their money in like playing and sound and
great play.
That the video, We Gotta Know video is insane. That's like
shit.
Same thing I said about the Anthem video goes for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, insane. Totally insane.
Yeah. Man, they always got the fucking crazy players, you know. First of all, you got my brother Mackie on drums, and even right after, Petey Hines. Shout out to Petey Hines, whoever he is. They always have a bad fucking rhythm section, you know what I mean? The original squad had a couple of, you know, suspect niggas in it. We won't get into that. That's whatever. But shout out to Blood Clot and shout out to Mackie. And out there keeping that Crowmags shit alive. And but yeah, I got one for you. I don't know where they from. Carnivore.
Really good? Really? Do you consider them a hardcore band or a metal band?
But this is why it's good to tell you, look, this is, to me, they were a metal band, but why I lumped them in there was they came out of the hardcore scene. They were spawned from hardcore dudes. Obviously, that's the special thing about hardcore and metal. Hardcore has a scene. Not that metal doesn't have a scene, but the hardcore community, you have like every age. Like, all right, if hardcore was a school, you got from first grade till you graduate. Metal only has first grade and senior year. You know what I mean? Like, you either playing a battle of the bands or you got to get booked at the biggest shows. So that's why a lot of metal bands needed to come through the hardcore scene to play because there was no middle tier. So exactly, or just your levels up. You know what I mean? Hardcore, that's the special thing about hardcore music. You had those tiers. And you're right. To be honest with you, I was never the biggest Carnivore fan. But being that Pete Steele was around back then, and he had involvement with the AF stuff, and he was involved with the scene, and it was like Cause for Alarm, kind of that. I lumped them in as that. But yeah, you know, I think they're hardcore spirit, but definitely more towards the metal shit. I was never crazy about them, but the people that I grew up with, if they liked, they either loved them or hated them. And I just remember Jesus Hitler and thinking, yo, this shit is insane. It was pretty hard track. I can't front.
Yeah, it's definitely super hard, and it's cool too because you can hear like the guitars being plugged in, and it's like really raw, but also really well done. And the vocal delivery is super crushing. Yeah, it's really, really, really good. And over the time, I would say, like, I can't speak for them, but I would think that's probably one of Biohazard's super big influences. But
definitely Brooklyn and Staten Island style. Hell yeah.
But not something I listen to all the time. But there are some hardcore kids that would put them up there, top 10.
They're big with the white trash people, that's for sure. The white trash. Staten Island loves them. Upstate loves. Yo, shout out to Brick by Brick. Go back to B. Yo, shout out to B. Just talking to white trash. Shout out to Brick by Brick. Love you, Valeni. But I got another C. I got one more C. I don't know if you got any more C's, but I got one more C that's special to you and to me. Crown of Thorns.
Nice.
I had to throw about the G's in there. You know,
first time I saw them, they came to Buffalo with I want to say it was Sick of It All. Who the fuck? It was a 3-band, but maybe Orange 9, maybe Sick of It All, Orange 9, and Crown of Thorns. And I mean, just seeing Ezak for the first time on stage, you're like intimidated. Also, Ezak's got such a wild style of when you look at him, what you think. He
definitely got a wild style look to him. That's for sure.
You think he's gonna come at you like Fury of 5 style, but none of his music was ever like that. It's always a little more like emotional and like some sort of melody to it. So it was totally like, and the name Crown of Thorns is also like, this guy's gonna fucking stick a pipe through my skull. But yeah, super great. And Dijon again, amazing.
Yeah. Again, that's the thing I loved about Crown of Thorns. Like, I love Scarhead. I loved, that was a different style animal, but Crown of Thorns definitely was, it was it was something different when we were all coming down your throat with music, trying to pound sound through people's heads. They kind of took the back road, you know what I mean? And came at you with more melody and fucking, again, a lot of it had, Dijon's playing. It was so open that you could throw a lot of styles in it, and it was refreshing at the time. And, I definitely found it cool. Ezak's afro was a little, disturbing at times. But definitely when they fall in, that era of when we were all, like I say, all the bands during that era, like the All Out Wars, the Madballs, when we were in the era of the later tier of bands, rebuilding the scene, because the scene was dead when all of our bands came out. They were definitely a good piece to that puzzle where they didn't sound like everybody, and they brought that melodic angle to it, and the more deeper lyrics instead of the more hammer on your head type of lyrics. CasaDeRock.com, home of that fly DIY. You want to support the show? Go cop some merch right now. We got a lot of new t-shirts, shorts, and caps available. Everything is made in-house by your boy on the spot. So show some love, support the movement. CasaDeRock.com is the spot. But definitely,
I got 2 C's in my head.
Go ahead, hit me.
And they're very different. Cold as Life and Chain of Strength.
Okay, I'm glad you brought them up, because I totally forgot. And I could tell, well, I'll start with, all right, Chain of Strength. I got to see, it's funny because I see a lot of these kids that would never come to a Madball show because we're not straight edge or we're not this, but they never even seen Chain of Strength. I got to see Chain of Strength a lot of times because I was a hardcore kid who loved hardcore. I didn't give a fuck what you ate or what you did behind closed doors. I was a fan of the whole scene and the music, and I got to catch them a bunch of times, and especially seeing them at CB's. It was Chain of Strength, I think No for an Answer. I think it was that Free For All thing, and from the green on the shirt, the aesthetics to the energy, of the band. They had that Cali shit, but they had some other shit involved with it. I really felt that band. Like I'll be lying and say I just sat around listening to Chain of Strength, but whenever they would play, I'd go see them. You know what I mean? I don't know. Did you ever get to catch them, or where did they fall in for you?
They were falling. If we were talking 7 inches, that they'd be in my top 5, maybe number 1 7-inch. The drummer is amazing. Yeah, they have a second 7-inch too. It's just as good. So they're one of the bands I listen to a lot. Like when I'm going for a bike ride and I feel like out of shape piece of shit, if I put Chain of Strength on, it literally lifts me up instantly. Awesome live. Again, like the bold, the real youth crew look, and perfect jumping pictures and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Rev stuff was just undeniable when I first got into hardcore. And of course, when you first get into hardcore, that stuff's ultra special to you. So I love them. And then we can go to Detroit's grimiest. Like, holy shit, man.
CTYC. What could you say? What can't you say about them?
Some of the craziest lyrics I've ever read.
Some of the craziest looking humans God ever put. And I believe in God, to all you heathens out there. God put these savages on earth, but they put them on earth for us to enjoy. Because I love those guys. You know, those are my family right there.
And on Set It Off, you guys have a song written about Cold as Life. So
Ronnie, rest in peace. Very special band.
I remember one time, I'll never forget, me and Freddie were drinking a lot. I think we were in Europe maybe. And he said some really ultra kind words about Ronnie and said some really, really respectful stuff about him. So I never met the guy, but I'm sure if Freddie felt that much respect towards him, he must have been a very, very good person. Man,
for guys that came out of the murder capital and guys that would, you know, bash your head in, those dudes got big hearts. And they always had a lot of love for us, you know, in New York. And they would drive from Detroit to New York all the time. We had some of our best hangout times with Cold as Life. They would drive, like 30 of them, pile in a van and drive and stay at Stigma's house. You know, Stigma's house is one room. I don't even know how they made it happen. But you know what I mean? And it's like, and Ronnie too, man. A funny story, I said it on the podcast I did with Anthony. They were in town, and Anthony had a get-together in his house in Long Island, and we all rolled up with Cold as Life. And, you know, those are the first guys with face tattoos. Shout out to Dougie and all of them, my brother Doug. But also, you know, you see them and expect them to come and be disrespectful because, you know, the look, you know, if you don't know that world, you kind of assume things. The most respectful guys, a lot of love. You know, they'll catch a bullet for their people, for their scene, and for what they believe in, you know. Special band and probably sonically one of the hardest bands ever. You know,
yes,
like perfect mix of punk, metal, and hardcore, you know, just they're like that Discharge shit who we're gonna get into. That Discharge shit in the future. But fucking shout out to Cold as Life. You know, the guy that probably has more people in the cemetery than anybody, you know. Every time those guys will roll up, they have a new member and another one, you know, get killed or something, man. You know, it's insane band. But a lot of love to the fucking Cold as Life crew. And of course, we ended up Freddie wrote a song for them because Freddie was really close with Ronnie. And these were the days when you didn't drop a text message, you would write letters and shit. And those guys kept in touch. And a little fact, in the Down by Law video, which was our first video, you know, you see a Madball head tattoo. Dougie had the first Madball tattoo ever.
Oh, shit, nice.
And he's in the Down by Law video. Shout out to Dougie, my brother. And moving on to while we're on the subject, Discharge. For me, again, they were definitely in an era before me, but there's none of us without a Discharge band. And sometimes the older we get, the older the scene gets, I think they starting to get a little bit more forgotten about, which they shouldn't, because they were the band that brought that metal crossover that wasn't just thrash metal or whatever, and mix it with the punk that became that early form of that hardcore shit. You know, they didn't sound. They never sounded like a Terror or like a Madball, but that DNA spawned into those bands that let the punk rock shit take from the metal and vice versa. But it was a special thing. You know, my brother grew up with that. Like he had a 7-inch, the Y 7-inch. You know, it was why. This is the lyrics of the song. Why? It was that. But it was so fucking crazy, and some of the hardest guys ever. Terry Bones, another guy who went on to play with The Business. He played, I even think, what Ministry or who knows, whatever. But not only real motherfuckers that, you know, they wrote about what they lived. That they're some of the godfathers of mixing that metal shit with the punk shit and making their own sound. You know, that's why you hear the bands like Metallica and all these old bands rock the Discharge shit, the GBH shit. But Discharge was more on that hardcore shit than GBH. GBH is a band I love also. But special band, did Discharge ever make it? How was it up there where you were at with that? Or was it with the older guys?
I was very blind to the band until Three Guns got into Terror. And then when I was spending, I had known Frank for a long time, but I'm spending long drives and bus tours with him, and he would really put it on me. And and then we would start seeing them in Europe playing festivals, obviously a much later edition, but still total power. Frank would play them in Raw Power all the time.
Yeah.
Just like really introduced me to that sort of style of like really early hardcore.
Yeah.
And you can just recognize the intensity in the everything about it. So I came into it late, but I got a lot of respect for it.
Yeah, hell yeah. They definitely have a big part of it. Another band that, for me, I was never the biggest fan, yet I fell into a band that their influences didn't come from this band, but later on I started catching that we have a lot of similarities. DRI.
Nice.
DRI was a band that had the crossover album where they brought in, some metal. But the thing that I loved about them, again, I wasn't the biggest DRI fan, but there was two things: the aesthetics. They had the V logo, the Running Man, that's classic. They were always associated with skateboarding, which I was a skater when I was a young kid. And three, that they had songs that were fucking 40 seconds long, a minute long, which if you hear early Madball, I hear early DRI, yet none of the guys were really into DRI that much. Respect to them, but it wasn't part of the Madball DNA. Yet later on, I'm like, wow, that sounds like early Madball, or Madball sounded like early DRI. You ever catch the DRI fever?
Yes, early. Again, because of my brother, he had all the DRI stuff. The Dealing With It, I think, is the song with the 22 songs or whatever that are all super short. The first hardcore show I ever went to was DRI, Gangrene, the Goo Goo Dolls.
Wow.
So I'll always have a special place for DRI. And then I think Crossover was next, and then Four of a Kind. And I really like all of it. Not a band I wouldn't have brought up, but definitely are important to me. And I like both their eras. Like definitely the earlier stuff was I would never put together that Madball and early DRI sounds the same, but when you say it, it definitely does.
Yeah.
And then the crossover stuff.
Yeah, no, it's weird because I was never into them where I could point out a lot of songs. Then when I would hear some DRI songs later, I go, yo, that kind of reminded me of, some of this and some of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit. And again, the early, I guess, you had early hardcore that didn't have much to be picking from. They were kind of picking from the same tree. So you could kind of hear the DNA in those bands. But they definitely crossed over and brought a bigger audience to hardcore music,
I would guess, and I don't know if this is true at all, but maybe Leeway's really influenced by DRI. I would think maybe.
Crazy, because I don't hear that, but
like
I would be surprised.
Fast picking?
Yeah. Definitely, maybe, definitely. I got E. Let's move on to E.
Wait.
Because I got one more D, but I wanted to, who you got?
I got one that's really important to me, Dag Nasty. And I know that they're borderline punk, but...
That's all right. We got a couple of those lingering.
Dag Nasty, can I say, is top 10, maybe favorite records ever for me. So wow. I know a lot of people that don't, like, if you're not into that, like, emotional, melodic hardcore, but I love it. And I think the lyrics are amazing, and it's one of my favorite records ever.
I don't know much about them, but since I got into the music, they were around and always, respected in the mix with all the real shit. So I would always give them respect, but I didn't know a lot about them either. I didn't know they were on the melodic tip, so you just said so either.
Oh, super amazing!
I couldn't point out a Dag Nasty song to you, but I could point out their logo and be like, oh yeah, those guys come from, they're the same family. You know what I mean? Where were they from? Do you know?
DC.
Oh, they were
They're like
DC.
the whole Discharge, that whole world. It's Dave Smalley singing, who
I was
think
gonna
he's from
say,
Boston.
what do you know about DYS?
I know they got that crazy picture on the back of the record with the hooded, the masked guy with the swastika.
So I said, yeah. And that was like some fuck you to the Nazi shit, right? I heard that was always that. That's why I don't know a lot about them, but I respected where they fell into place for, you know, their time. You know, they were before me, and a lot of roots, and they played with all the classic bands and the imagery, and they were always, again, one of those bands I never got to see. I would always hear the OGs talking about them, and they pop up when you talk a lot about the history of the scene.
Thinking of DYS made me think about Boston, and it made me think we've missed Blood for Bloods, but we don't have to go too much into them, but they could have been in the B section very easily.
Yeah, there's a couple of fucking letters we forgot. All right.
E, you want to go to E?
Who you got for E? I got one on deck.
I think we got the same one. Are they from close to my homeland?
Yes.
All right, give it to us.
It's a Earth Crisis with an F, like I call them. Shout out to my favorite fucking vegans. Shout out to Carlos and Scumbag Scott. All of them. I got love for all of them. A lot of love for those dudes. Special band.
For me, you know, that the era right before they became a band was when I started going to show. Like, I grew up in Buffalo, and that's like a little over 2 hours to Syracuse, and I would drive up to shows there once a month, maybe twice a month, and somehow this band. I remember their guitar. Their first guitarist, Ben Reed, who was in the band just up to the first album, walked up to me in the Lost Horizon and had this crazy cut on his face, this whole thing. And he was like, just a fresh scab, not a scar. And he was like, yo, you want to buy the 7-inch? I was like, sure, I'd buy anything at the time. And I took it home and blown away by the All Out War 7-inch. Later became friends with him, and he told me some story how he was fucking getting some animal out of a cage and got his face cut. And like, their early shows, I mean, all their shows, but their early shows were some of the craziest shows I ever saw. They kind of game changer, like changed the whole, pivoted hardcore and brought in something totally fresh and amazing. You know, Carl's so weird looking, and his lyrics were so intense and so smart, and he's putting words in his lyrics that I have to look up in a dictionary so I can figure out what the fuck he's talking about. It's like,
and what I loved about them is, you know, when I talk about how I always bring up how straight edge had a lot to do with separation of the scene itself. I don't blame all straight edge the main reason for a lot of things getting separated in the scene, but the straight edge movement had a lot. The youth crew movement had that because, like I said, I didn't care if it was No Friend Answer, you know, Earth Crisis. If you were dope, you were dope, and you were a hardcore band, that's what you were into. What you ate and what you wore had nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? I didn't give a fuck about that, and hardcore wasn't about that. Earth Crisis, what I loved about them, they were so gung-ho about what they believed in. I respected that a lot because we were gung-ho in what we did. We thought before we met we were going to clash because they set up a tour with us. This was, you know, again, Earth Crisis at its hype when they were the generals of the whole vegan straight edge movement, or the militant, you know, vegan straight edge. And we're like, you know, oh, we're going to have beef with these guys. You know, oh, if they try to smack a beer out of our hand, it's going to be on kind of shit. And I remember having these combos before we got in the bus with them, you know, and it wasn't because they were vegan. We just thought how they would react to our lifestyle. At the end of the day, we all came up from the same place with the same love of the bands and the same respect for each other. That's one of the bands we probably got along with the most. You know, that's why we're good friends to this day. You know, and I back whoever I got respect for. If it has to do with you eating meat or wearing a leather jacket or not, that has really nothing to do with me. To me, it's like, if you are real, if you respect what I respect, I'm with you. You know, and those guys live their shit. I'll tell you a funny Earth Crisis story. We were on tour and we go to a Baskin Robbins, and it's me and Bulldog. And we walk in and there was like an Indian guy behind the counter, and I'm getting an ice cream cone or something. And then Bulldog is looking at ice cream, whatever they had, different kinds, and he's asking the guy, "Yo, is this vegan?" And again, vegan, we're lucky now. Those guys were touring when veganism wasn't popping. You know what I mean? And he's asking, "Is that dairy free? Is there any milk?" And the guy the Indian guy really didn't know what was going on, and you could tell he was kind of like, yeah, kind of thing. So he gets Bulldog his ice cream, and I'm walking, and it's me and Bulldog walking out. I don't know if he would remember this, but I'm eating my ice cream, and I see Bulldog. I see him take the taste of it, and then I just see him throw it in the garbage. Yeah, and I go, "What happened?" He goes, "It tastes too good to be vegan." And I never forget that shit. And I was like, "Oh, I love these guys." I had one of the best tours I've ever had was on that tour we did with us, Earth Crisis, Scarhead, and Hatebreed opening that early on. Crazy.
What a tour.
Crazy fucking shout out to all the vegan. Shout out to them, not only that, to keeping that Syracuse shit alive. They brought that Syracuse shit like strong from the old days to them.
I think it's very notable that let's say 30 years later, they're still straight edge and still vegan. And I don't think you find any band that could say that. I mean, I'm sure I'm wrong. Yeah. But for a band that was so outspoken,
facts.
Most of those bands fall real fast, and those guys.
Facts. And not only that, some of the illest players, they play metal better than a lot of metal bands. Yet they're a hardcore band, 1,000%. You know what I mean? They're the ones who they did it right. Shout out to Carlos and all you fucking vegan motherfuckers out there. Shout out to the Syracuse.
I got a strong E.
What?
I got a strong E.
I got an E. One more E. Who you got?
Go ahead. Let's hear yours. Maybe it's
this one's a little bit later, but they popped in my head because they come up a lot from the people around me, or from a later generation, but guys around me. E-Town Concrete.
We were there. We were on the same.
Again, they were one of the bands that came out when we were doing those 5-rounders. The bringing that scene back. When I say we, not just Madball, but like the era when the scene in New York was kind of dead, and they were one of the bands that were around in that time where, again, great players, a real hardcore band, but they were able to mix that hip hop shit, and they had that swag, and they came up with a good recipe, and they were a good representation for New Jersey that wasn't just meathead. You know what I mean? They brought something to the table, and great players, man. Like some cool shit, man.
Very. I remember, I don't know, let's say 5 years ago, we did one of those East Coast Tsunami shows, and they played. And Nick Jett wasn't ever really into E-Town, and he saw them play, and he was like, "Holy shit!" Everyone in that band, including Ant Money, is amazing on their fucking instrument. I love them. They're a band like when Tara's got to play a show and I'm not in the mood, I put on E-Town, crack a little vodka, and I'm ready to go, man. They're like bring me energy quickly.
Yeah. And what's cool about them, they got that thing in Jersey where they do that show every once in a year. They go and they play a huge show. Like they got their own world, that comes out and reps for them, and that we played a couple of those with them. They always got mad love for us, and we play with them, and we'd play with them anytime, especially there. It's always like it's love for them. Again, I respect them, and I like what they did. They put Jersey in the map in a cool way. We're not just some meathead shit, but they're great players and real hardcore band too. They came from a good angle. All right, G, I know. I'm gonna let you settle, G, because I know you one of your favorites is right there. Who do you got? I got a couple of G. Oh no, we're an F. Excuse me. We on the F, and I got a little stuck on F. I got 3, but one of them is more my alley and a little bit more of the later years. Who do you got on the F?
Can I do a brief backpedal?
Absolutely.
We forgot Born from Pain and Backfire.
Oh, of course. Oh yeah, no, there's a lot. Exactly. There's so many. Both of those bands put Europe on the map. Like they took the elements of what they were influenced in the States and brought the real essence to Europe. And then they're a big part of keeping and spreading the word in Europe, man, for sure. Both of them, like sonically, lyrically, and with the heart of hardcore music. Like they have the real heart. They're a pulse. Like they're related. You know what I mean? Being from Europe, those guys are family, not just as close friends to us, but as hardcore music as a whole. They belong there. You know what I mean? When you talk about European hardcore, for sure. F.
The first one coming to my head is Fahrenheit 451. And I don't really know that much. I know it's that whole striving for togetherness scene. I don't know that much about them. I know there's an old new age band called Free Will.
Yep. Fahrenheit, real cool band. Fahrenheit, they're like the younger cousins of Burn. Put it like that.
Right. They
had a swag, great guitar work that wasn't typical metal, real hardcore band, but they brought that flavor with them. Armando, the whole Bronx swag, and they had the energy. And again, they were a good band for the time to bring different flavors with the real heart and real soul of hardcore music. I didn't have them on here, but they were in my head. You know what I mean?
I know Fast Break from Connecticut, but I don't have a big F.
I got one. Fury of 5.
Oh.
How can
don't want to forget them?
Exactly. Fury of 5. Again, like Jersey, like a E-Town Concrete. Put Jersey on the map, but put Jersey in the map with a fucking brick in your head. You know what I mean?
I've heard, myths about them that they practice religiously, that Stickman was very, very, no one's getting fucked up. You're going to play the show sober and you better fucking play good. And what a beast of a band and a front man. Holy shit. Very
great band. Another band. Jersey had that thing that in the later years that great players, a lot of great players, the whole band could fucking rock. You know what I mean? And Stickman being a big gorilla that, shout out to Stickman. I can't wait to hug him. I'm not scared of you, nigga. I'm going to hug him and give him a big kiss. But that's my bro, again, a dude who lived his lyrics. You know what I mean? And they loved the music and they represented good, man. And they, again, real pro. They were good for showing that hardcore bands could kill it. They could sound good. They could look good. They and still cross over with flavor. You know what I mean?
They got that video where they pull up in a fucking limousine, and next thing you know, fucking Stickman's doing windmill moshing. Woo.
All right, I got a band on the F.
Okay. I
don't know where they fall, but I put them down because, again, Fugazi. Where do you put them in? Because I don't know. Listen, this is what besides the Minor Threat, which we'll get into, I never knew where they fell in, but yet every hardcore kid sweated them.
Here's my Fugazi. I listen to lots of podcasts and lots of people of all different size bands, genre bands. They either say one of two things. I got into hardcore from skateboarding or Fugazi. I hear it 99% of the time. Or my older brother. To me, Fugazi came to Buffalo right when they came out. I was excited because Ian was Ian from Minor Threat. And they got on stage and they played like 2 songs. And they stopped the set and said, this isn't a football game. If anyone stage dives, we're not playing. They played another song. Someone stage dove. They walked off stage, and I was done with Fugazi because,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Minor Threat, I mean, I guess they have the right to do whatever they want. I guess they have the right to be offended by stage diving. I guess they have the right to police their own shows. But for me, it was a total turnoff, and I never got into the band from there. It was just over. Of course, I know the song Waiting Room, and I think it's great. And of course, I've read up on the band and watched video, like live shows, and I can tell they were super in it. And they invented lots of things, and they were unique and very thoughtful and powerful and stuff. But that just totally left a sour taste in my mouth. I don't go to shows to be told to stand there and watch the band. That's why I got into shows, because I didn't want to be like at a concert. I wanted to be at a show, and
exactly.
It wasn't right.
I'll give you a funny Fugazi story. They were playing in the West Side. I forgot the name of the club, and we went because a lot of people we knew went, and we were hanging outside. We were inside, and we ended up going outside to blaze or to hang out. We were like, we same kind of shit. They were inside. They stopped the set because somebody was stage diving, and they said, "This ain't a fucking hardcore show." So we're outside. We're outside hanging out, me and one of my friends. And outside this club, man, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank the name of the club. Right next to the entrance door, there was 2 doors, and I was leaning up against it with my foot against the wall, like bent up, my foot on the wall. I'm kind of kicking it, like just, fucking around, and the door opens up. Well, guess what? It was the electricity to the whole club. Me and my boy looked at each other, and we started hitting switches. We shut down the whole show. Jing, 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 jing. The lights went out. People came out. The show got shut down for a little bit. So, to me, I thought that shit was corny too. That, I get you if you're not a hardcore band, but more than half the people were there because he wasn't a hardcore band. So, anybody who denies their roots, I got a problem with. I don't know if they meant it to be that day or they were just too artsy for what we know. But they came into my head when I wrote this, when I put it down, because I know a lot of hardcore dudes drop them in, as one of their favorites.
I think it's funny. We both had the same exact experience with them, and that we never talked about that till now.
Yeah, and it's the same reason. We were like, it's a turnoff. Waiting Room, same thing. Dope track, but okay, not dope enough for me to turn my back on what they've said and what they've done, at that moment. To me, it's kind of corny. And fucking G. Let's move to G. I want you to start off G because I know you're...
I think we got the same one. Gorilla Biscuits.
Yes. I got 2. You named the other one early on, but Gorilla Biscuits.
I would put Start Today in my top 5 favorite albums ever. Top 10 probably favorite albums ever for any type of music. It's like a perfect hardcore record. I jocked the shit out of Walter. He's amazing. Luke, the drummer, played on Start Today and Don't Forget the Struggle. That's like insane. Siv's delivery is insane, and it's just like they had the Youth Crew aesthetic too, but they had something more. That
yes,
Siv could actually sing, and the songs were actually songs. Like I can see when people say Bold aren't that great. When you put Speak Out against Start Today, it's like no contest. But yeah, one of the greats. And still to this day, man, GB, I've never seen him play a bad show.
Yeah.
Like,
what I loved about Gorilla Biscuits, they never, like they had that Youth Crew behind them because they were straight edge dudes, but they were never those dudes. Like I grew up with them since I'm a little kid. Those guys were from the neighborhood. The Gorilla Biscuit house used to be near the park we hung out in. It was never, don't hang out with those guys because of this. It was always fam. And if you look at all the early Gorilla Biscuit shows, it was a lot of us. We used to roll up deep because they were never my favorite band, but I liked them. There was always a lot of energy, and they were a great hardcore band, and they always came with it. You know what I mean? And again, I never saw them for what was on the menu that night for dinner. I didn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? And even with them, I never got that feeling about it where, we're too cool because you don't eat like us or you don't do yoga like some other people. ended up doing, kind of thing. You know what I mean? You know, it's shout out to all my yogis out there. No offense to yoga, but you know, it shouldn't be the thing that separates you. It should just be a thing that you do on your own time. It should have nothing to do with the scene you come from. Like, it's part of it, but it shouldn't separate you from the scene. If I smoke, that shouldn't separate me from the people that don't smoke, and vice versa. That's my beef, because, again, I came from an era where I'm lucky that if you were a hardcore band, I was in. I didn't give a fuck where, you know, where everything else fell in the fucking spectrum. I got one more G for you. A band I never knew much about, but mad respect, Gangrene.
Nice.
Gangrene I got because since I was a kid going through the record section, they were always there. They were in all the skater magazines, the logo, you know, and I know some of their music that just being loud and crazy, but I didn't have a lot of history with them. What's up with you and Gangrene?
They were on that show. They were on my first hardcore show, DRI Gangrene. I know they like beer. And the
Budweiser shit was great. Exactly. The whole beer thing was great. Yeah.
I put them more punk, but I could be wrong. I don't know their music. They're from Boston. Is that right? Are they from Canada?
You know what? I don't even know. I think, you know, good question. Good question. I don't know much, but maybe.
I would guess Boston, but yeah, don't know much. I'm trying to think, is there any more G's? I know Grade from Canada.
Never heard of them. I had the two G's of Gorilla Biscuits and Gangrene. You know, there was a lot of little ones. I just kind of put the ones that popped in my head, like moving on to H. I got one H.
Your boy?
Huh?
Your boy? Your boy?
My favorite balding guy. Fucking. Yeah. I knew you when your hairline and Toby when his hairline was around here. My H is H2O. My favorite sentimental guy. You know, H2O, man.
He's a hell of a front man.
Yo.
He really is.
Even the place H2O had in New York when at the height of the whole, you know, everybody being real alpha, you had H2O, who was our California sound to the East Coast was still being East Coast. You know what I mean? They still had that. You could hear the soul of the East Coast in them, but yet they had that West Coast feel to it. You know, again, perfect band for the perfect time to give variety to the scene. And look at now, man, they put out a lot of records, and you know, they bumped that hardcore shit. They never called themselves anything else. You never hear them saying some punk rock shit. You know, we're a punk. They're a hardcore band. And I think what I loved about them was that was our, you know, the East Coast Bad Religion. Even though they don't sound like a Bad Religion, they were our melodic band. You know, who's the guy with the glasses? The old band from California. They got man.
BSOL?
No,
that's Canada.
The big band.
The big guy?
No.
The Descendants.
Descendants. You know, the OGs or whatever. They were like our East Coast version of those melodic bands. So I just, again, being a fan of just the whole movement, I was glad we had every kind of bullet in the gun. You know what I mean? We had a hollow tip. We had a slug. We had a fucking, a little bit of fairy dust.
There's another H with the same frontman, the Hazen Street.
Oh, but that wasn't a hardcore band. But the essence was, again, that was it was a mishmash of everything that with real hardcore dudes involved, but never meant to be a hardcore band. But right. the soul was always hardcore influence. You know, when you had, Mackie, fucking Freddie, Toby, Davey, every one of us was, Chad. People know Chad from being in a pop punk band, but Chad's a real hardcore kid. You know what I mean? People don't know that. They think that's a real hardcore kid, motherfucker, right there.
I have a theory, and this is gonna, I think this a lot. This could be debated, and if someone didn't agree with me, I'd understand. But I always say, if hardcore kids make music, it's hardcore because it's not a sound. It's the way you live your life. So
yeah, I know what you mean. Nowadays, it's that like Biohazard. Again, they weren't a hardcore band, but the soul was a hardcore band. So I could see why people lumped them in. You know, it's a bunch of hardcore dudes. Maybe one of them wasn't real hardcore dude, but they all had that influence, you know, and whatever. But H2O, shout out to H2O as my only H.
There was a band from Buffalo called Half Mast that did a lot. Haymaker from Canada was.
Haymaker, I remember them. I didn't know.
Ooh, they were
a lot of them, but I remember the name for sure.
They were like,
there was a lot of bands under there. I try to get the first couple bands that stuck out of my head or that I would hear around.
Right. All right, let's move on.
I got some good ones for some classics. Instead,
I thought the Icemen, if that's an I.
Well, I got them too. But
Instead,
again,
very positive, very California, very straight. I really like their Will Make the Difference 7-inch. That's like perfect hardcore to me. Almost a little too happy at times to me. When they did that Epitaph album,
yep,
it kind of lost me. But they're kind of like in that Bane world for a hardcore kid that's a little nicer.
Yeah,
could be one of their favorite bands ever.
Yeah,
cool logo, cool.
Yeah,
the Bonds of Friendship.
Yep.
Iconic artwork, super cool.
What I liked about early them was, again, the straight edge guys, and there was a lot of straight edge bands coming out of California at the time. Their influences, you could hear that early Agnostic Front influence, like that dirty mix of punk with the, that just crazy with hardcore shit. You could tell they were listening to AF early on. So I always, I liked it. And I liked the, back then being a straight edge band playing like that stuck out to me. It was like cool, I liked it. It was like, it wasn't a thing yet to have its own sound. It was like just a cool dynamic of them being from Cali was more special to me than, what was on the menu, like I've been saying, you know what I mean? But the Icemen, another band that gets forgotten about. Forgotten about, a band that fell through the cracks. What you feel about the Icemen?
Awesome imagery, awesome playing. Maybe they're kind of forgotten about because they don't have enough output. They didn't play that long, so they were kind of like a quick flash. And if you saw it, you were like mesmerized by it. And I see a lot of bands still like rip off their artwork and like do the mock-ups of it with their bands on it. So I think they have kind of like that cult following.
Yep.
And super good playing too. Yeah. I never saw them.
I got to see them a lot, man. They played a lot. And they were one of those bands that they were never the biggest band, but they always had flavor. Not just because they had Mackie, even Carl had flavor. You could hear, I don't know, you could just feel they had a Bad Brains thing to them without sounding like the Bad Brains, but they had that kind of flavor and that swag and good shit. And I got to play with them with Demise. My first band was actually one of our only shows at CB's with the Icemen. So good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
I got two strong eyes in my head. Let's see where you're.
All right, I got who you got. I got two left also.
Go ahead.
I got one's a little bit newer and they're guys we know. Ignite.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I them for a little bit more, again, the later years, but original Ignite, former Uniform Choice guys. California, like Brett said when I first met them. Yeah, we're opera core. He was talking shit, whatever.
Kind of,
I'll tell you this, when we first got put on tour with them, I hated them sonically because it wasn't like I really didn't get it. Like I would sit outside and be like, yo, I gotta tour 6 weeks with these guys. But it was me being more ignorant because I would hear Zoli style, which I wasn't listening to at the time. And then I remember a week into the tour checking out one of their sets, and then I got blown away and I got hooked. They were one of the bands that brought me more into that melodic shit. Not just because, again, fast forward, they're family. I got a lot of love for Zoli and all those guys, even though a lot of people hate Zoli. I love them. But I got it. Like they put it really well together with traditional sounds. And man, I seen them fucking kill it. You know what I mean? To this day, they would murk it, or when they were playing, you know, from the playing, the style wise, they have their little breakdowns. They got the melodic shit, and man, yeah, I like where they put California on the map with that classic Cali sound for the later years. Who do you got?
He's great. Zoli's great. Quite a character off stage, but man, what a voice.
Oh.
I got Infest, which is like Martine's favorite band, and I think a lot of people out here on the West Coast really, really give that band a lot of love. I gotta go with Integrity, man. One of the greats.
I knew you put them on there.
I love that band, and their early stuff is amazing. Stuff that I still listen to a lot, and I think they're fucking amazing.
You know, besides having to check them in California, I'll give them props. One, you know, I love fucking Frankie, but I give them props for this. I'm not super familiar with them, but from people I respect and bands, they tell me what they did with their sound and where they brought it in at the time and the movement they started with their own sound and their style, you know. So, you know, just because I may not be crazy about certain people, I always give people props for what they did if I feel they earned it, you know. And a lot of people always put them in a special place. If you were into them, people would tell me they were a special band for what they did and the time they came out, sonically and their whole movement, you know.
When in Buffalo, we would get all the youth crew bands, and that was really big. And then once Integrity came, they kind of had this sort of youth crew look, but then they added like Slayer into it, and it met somewhere in the middle. And it was you could see bands, the Buffalo bands, change a little bit to try to catch up with Integrity. So they shifted the whole region I was in a little bit, and they're fucking great. So.
And Ohio is kind of close to upstate, correct?
Yeah, you could get to Cleveland in 3 hours.
That's what I mean. So that makes a lot of sense. I always forget how close it is and where it falls into the thing, and I realize that, and that makes sense because a lot of the bands up there, if they weren't the classic old style, early hardcore sound, they were a metallic sound. If you were the Rochester, Syracuse, a big mix of metal and all that. Okay, let's keep it moving because let's see. You know, I know you probably have some Survivor to watch.
I've got season 40 left. I refuse to watch it because then I'm done.
I know. Oh, it's great, man. Let me tell you, that's one of my best seasons. I love it.
Really? I've had it on ice for like 2 months. I can't.
It's amazing. I rewatched all of them during this whole fucking panfuckery. Every episode like 10 times. I love it. Best show on there. Everybody, if you out there and you never seen Survivor 1 through 100, 1 through 40, you're a fucking moron. But all right, let's see how far we could get before you got to get out of here. You just let me know.
I think we're gonna have the same J.
Yes, I got one J.
Go for it.
Judge.
Amen. What an album. What a 7-inch. Oh,
yeah, the 7-inch from Warriors, banger. Amazing. And that album, to me, did what the second Crowmags, the Best Wishes album did for the Crowmags. It did for Straight Edge, where it brought that metal shit, where I said, that's what I want to hear. Some fucking metallic hardcore with some real heavy shit, good playing, hard lyrics, and just the delivery. Sonically, everything about them, they murked it. Love it. That's one of my favorite albums. You know, haven't went back to it in a while, but definitely for me, when that record came out, I banged it hard.
Me too. Perfect. The 7-inch was so fast and raw, and then when that album came and the lyrics were so personal but so catchy, and Mike Judge just looked like a maniac, and they would play in Buffalo all the time. I probably saw them like 4 or 5 times back when Bringing It Down.
And I'll tell you this, when they play the Black and Blue, they sounded like the album. Even the sound sounded like I wanted to sit there and critique them. I wanted them to not be as good as they did, just for no reason, just to see it. And I was like, yo, these motherfuckers sound perfect.
Yeah, Sammy's great.
Shout out to Sammy, to Mike, all those guys. Killers. Let's keep it moving. K. You know who my favorite band.
You want to wait
Killing
a
Time.
while?
Killing Time.
Yeah, I think everything we said about bringing it down, you could just put right on Brightside. And if you're a little more a mean person, you want Brightside. If you a little more nice, you want Bringing It Down. Like two perfect records, just perfect.
Killing Time. This is the only time I call them Killing Time. To me, I call them Raw Deal. My favorite, hands down, my favorite band. To me, my favorite singer. To me, what Phil from Pantera did for metal, where he was a guy who could sing, you could understand him, but sound hard. That's what Anthony was. The perfect singer, the perfect band with the perfect amount of swag without trying to be hip hop, without trying to be urban, but had some flavor. My dog's going crazy. Madball, one of the biggest influences to Madball was Agnostic Front, Crowmags, Raw Deal. Hands down, for my plain personal flavor, they're probably like 60% of what, they're 80% of what I wanted my hardcore to be like on that tip, mixed in with the Crowmags and AF. Game changers.
One of the best. We made a serious error. Hatebreed.
Oh. Well, it's not an error. Exactly. Hatebreed, Killers. You know, we might have to do A through Z 2.0 later with all the beats. Of course, Hatebreed. How can we fuck everything?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk. I think everyone knows everything about Hatebreed, but
absolutely.
When you brought up Anthony's clear vocals, it reminded me of how clear Josta is, and I was like, holy shit.
And again, why they had what New York, especially the New York hardcore sound, the DNA, I trace back to them. They were all former members of Breakdown, where we trace back to the one-track Sick People. It makes sense. The DNA just comes out their pores. You know what I mean?
I got to see Raw Deal. I saw a show, Sick of It All, Raw Deal, Zero Tolerance. And then they came back, Killing Time, Eye for an Eye, Wrecking Crew.
Yep.
And probably some local band. And those shows, amazing. Fucking amazing.
Yep. All right, I got a couple more, but I'm gonna go one more. I'm gonna cut through the K. I'm trying to catch you as long as I could got you online. See how far we could get. How much time you got?
5:45. My girlfriend's gonna kill me.
All right. We're gonna go through. We'll go through one. We'll stop at L then. All right. Let me finish. I got for Killing Time. I got a couple, two more on the K. I got three more for K, but I'm gonna skip two and get to my one more K.
That means we can do part two.
Yes,
Second
exactly.
half of the alphabet. Okay.
You know what? Exactly. We'll stop at K then, right?
Yeah, we can do one more if you want. Whatever.
Okay, we'll stop at L. All right, we're gonna finish up with K. We'll skim through it, but I'm gonna give you my three. Crackdown.
Hard.
Yeah. Shout out to Jason Crackdown, wherever you are. A great band. Another one that they were never the main band, but they were the perfect band to be that co-headliner, to be on that bill, to stack a bill. Hard shit, real traditional, but not. And the skater element to it.
Got on the Rev Comp, which exposed them to every hardcore kid. Still, every generation of hardcore kid gets the Rev Comp and hears Crackdown. So they've got like the perfect lane for everyone to at least know that song.
Yep. All right, I got two more. I got an old one here.
You're gonna go Kraut, right? Like
yeah.
You're from Queens. You'd get crucified if you didn't.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. Me personally, I don't know nothing about Kraut except All Twisted, the one hit song that they had, and I know about everybody talking about Kraut from Astoria. Kraut. And I gotta say this. I asked Stigma this many years ago. I go, in the early days, who was the band, if you had to pick one band that you were like, yo, that's the band that's going to hit? And he told me Kraut. Like, they were the ones making noise, you know? So I don't know much about them. I thought maybe you might know more about them than I do.
When we did a tour, we did that tour with Hatebreed semi-recently, and Crowmags were on it. And AJ was like, crowd, you got to get into crowd. You got to get into crowd. You got to get into crowd. He played me crowd. It was way too punk for me. Way too, yeah. I hear it too all the time, especially Queens people. Crowd. So
yeah, I can't say I'm a crowd guy. I met the singer not too long ago. Good dude, you know. And obviously Doug Holland went on to the Crowmags. They went and done other stuff. So cool. I got 1K. This is probably my favorite K. Not Killing Time's my number one, but some of my favorite people from London, Knuckle Dust.
Ooh, nice.
Gotta shout out my brothers from the pond over, from the other side of the pond. Knuckle Dust. Again, people don't understand this. When I first made it to fucking England in the early 90s, the first two people we really clicked was with the business. Shout out to the business, just because they are the fucking business, and they Steve and rest in peace Mickey Fritz. But Knuckle Dust, they've been a band for so long and repping that real hardcore shit in the UK with the same essence that you had and I have, and they still have. And I get happy when I see them. You know, shout out to Pierre, all those guys, all of them. You know,
they got some swag on stage for sure, man.
Absolutely. You know, when you got the color up there, when you got some of this, you got some Peruvian and some Africano, and then you got, you know, shout out to those guys. But yeah, great, and they brought their own style too. You know, they had their own thing going on, which they always kept it fresh and sexy. Shout out to the UK. I love all my UK people. Hopefully we'll be there soon. We're going to end this one with the last letter. L. Who do you got? I got one.
The first one comes to my head is the almighty Leeway.
Exactly. That's the only L I got. What you got to tell me about Leeway?
Born to Expire's top 10 hardcore records for me. Eddie Sutton's voice with fucking AJ's riffs is insane. I mean, their whole catalog's great. A lot of younger kids try to tell me they like Desperate Measures more than Born to Expire. No way to me. Born to Expire is a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
Desperate Measures like an 8.5 out of 10 for me. But amazing. Total crossover. Some of the intro on that record.
The best.
I used to listen to this radio show on the college station in Buffalo, WDNY. And it was on Sunday nights at like 9 or 10 o'clock. And it would be like an hour or two of hardcore, and they announced shows and stuff. And their intro music was the Leeway intro. So you'd hear that bass and the hi-hats. That shit is crushing. What a recording too. Like,
everything about that album. Another big influence to my personal style of playing. Again, they had metal, but they had that bop. They had that Eddie had a lot of urban flavor to him, but with the thrash part of the hardcore shit, AJ's playing, you know, the whole band. Gibbons, that motherfucker, I wanted to hear him solo when I was not into solos. That was the motherfucker I wanted to hear. And another band that showed that, yo, you gotta be, that made me want to step up my game sonically. Was like, yo, those motherfuckers sound like the big boys. You know, we gotta make sure our shit hangs. And even their other records, which I agree weren't like the first record, I give it to them for how, you know, one, they went for it, changing styles, but they always brought a swag to it that was unique. And whenever you could do that, you know, bring a new flavor from left field and make it work, I always end up gravitating and appreciating the shit. Big influence for us, big time.
That's the first time I heard Pokey too on Desperate Measures, and he's got some bounce and some flavor to his
Absolutely.
drum. Holy shit, man.
You know, that's where the world got yellow fever. You know, with Pokey, you know, he got yellow fever. But yeah, yo, Leeway, classic, Born Expired, you know, that's, again, classic shit. That's all you motherfuckers out there, go get that record. You know, I'll tell you a funny story before we end with this. Me and Beto, who was in Demise originally and then played on the Hold It Down record, we waited for that album because that album was recorded, I don't know what year, but it came out like 2 years later. It took a while before the album dropped. And we found out when the album was coming out, and we were at our local record store, which had a big hardcore section. And we went there the day it came out, and it was still in the box on the floor. They haven't opened the boxes and put it in the racks yet. And we used to tell the guy there, come on, yo, let us get it. We ended up buying the record, and this goes to show you how bad we wanted it and how young we were. I think the record cost $7 and change. I had $5. Beto put in the rest, and we split the album. We went home, and I was like, yo, I'm going to use it till Friday. You get it on the weekend, and then I'll get it the next weekend. But yo, Vogel, we're gonna stop at L, and we're gonna hit him with the part 2. But yo, I'm glad I got you with this. I got to reminisce about a lot of people, and you reminded me of a lot of bands I forgot.
I'm gonna do a little research for the second half so I have a couple, because I know throughout the week I'm gonna pop music on and go, like, if I wouldn't have brought up Hatebreed, it would have been like, how can you not bring up music?
I know. But you know what? Hatebreed got enough followers. So they're okay. Yo, shout out to Beat. Yo, shout out to my squad, the Hatebreed family. You know what's up. They're family. A lot of DNA right there with us, you guys, with them, and everybody. But Vogel, Birdman, you're the guy I needed for this.
I don't have much to do, so let me know when you're bored.
Yeah, we're gonna do the part 2 this week. The next time you open, but I'm glad I got you, because you're the guy I wanted to do this with, because not only that I know you're my boy, and this is shit we would have done backstage. I know you're a guy who comes from the same, even if we don't like the same groups, you know, we came out of the same pussy. You know what I mean? We were born from the same, like I said, the same hardcore, hardcore mother. But yo, shout out to, go check, let everybody know one more time where they could catch all the new terror shit that you got out, your .coms and all your shit.
Sticktight.la. And
did you say tit tight? What you said?
Stick. Like,
yeah, stick tight. Okay, I thought it was tit tight. Okay.
I think that might be on my little thing. Tit tight.
On your Grinder account?
Yeah.
Yo, but
yummy.
No, but so let them know. So sticktight.com.
Yeah, and then I think it's all Terror Hardcore, Instagram, Facebook, and all that shit. So,
yo, shout out to you. Shout out to the whole Terror family. Shout out to New York Hardcore and Worldwide Hardcore for influencing us and getting us remotivated, psyched on the classics. Because I've been wanting to do this. I got, again, the bug bit me again. And I wanted to break bread with somebody that, you know, comes from the same era as I do. Even though you're way older than I am.
I hate that.
Yo, peace out, Vogel. We'll talk soon. Yo, everybody, the Smokin Word, make sure you subscribe. Support the fucking movement. Support hardcore music. Support Metallica. We love Metallica, Slayer, but they got enough money. Go get that terror shit. Go get that Madball shit. Go get that Casa de Rock shit. Support all our podcasts. Or everybody from the Diablo's Den podcast, the Big Truth podcast, the Terror Garage cast. Support the movement, and let's keep this shit rocking. Peace out, family.
Bye-bye.